It's JT's job. He's played the position. He's really on top of it. He's doing a good job in our offense, but that's not to say we aren't giving other guys a look. That was Kirby Smart to one of the Atlanta radio stations earlier in March, talking about JT Daniels being the starting quarterback at Georgia, and that's sort of something he talked about really after the Missouri game. After the Mississippi State game when JT Daniels got in there quickly. I'm going to talk about why it matters that Kirby sort of said this already and what it means moving forward for Georgia as we get closer to a 2021 season that's not that far away anymore. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan and encouraging you to go to dogpost.com, DAWGPOST.com, where we talk about this sort of stuff every single day and in granular detail, let me tell you. In the time that Georgia has had Kirby as its head coach, in 2016, of course, you had a competition that eventually Jacob Eason won the job for. He did not start the first game, but in the spring of 16, there was no time at which a starter was declared. Going into the 17 season, Kirby said at media days that Jacob Eason would be the starter, but that was not during the spring. A year after that, Jake Fromm had taken Georgia to the national championship game, and it was insinuated that he would be the starter. But, I always remember Kirby's statement after the Tennessee game in 2018 that the plan is there is no plan with Jacob Eason with Justin Fields and Jake Fromm. Going into the 19 season, that was obviously Jake Fromm as the starter. There was really no one there to challenge him at the time. And then coming into 2020 was a mess. We didn't even have a spring practice. So there's been only a few times where the starting quarterback has been well established in spring football. And for Georgia, I think it gives them the opportunity to coalesce and get behind JT Daniels and have him playing hopefully at peak level because, you're without George Pickens for sure. You've got some guys coming off injury like Dominique Blaylock, Rosemary St. Jack. Now Burton has been hurt. So you've got a lot of guys in the receiving corps who are really good receivers, playmaking receivers who are hurt. So there's a lot to still be accomplished. And even though you have 10 guys on scholarship, 9 of which are projecting to play in the fall, that's not a ton of receivers. So you could get thin there during spring football to some degree. Kirby's talked a lot about how there's a lack of corners. Georgia only has 13 defensive backs, and all defensive backs are not corners. So that's another challenge for them. But for JT to come in and be named the starter, if you want to take it that way, I do, in the spring, that does give them time. A second season with an offensive coordinator is usually when things go on the upswing. When you think about Matthew Stafford in 2007, David Green in 2002, Matthew in 2007, Aaron in 2011, and certainly in 2012. But those were all times where the upswing was there. And then you had a run 14, 15, 16, and 17 where you had different quarterbacks every year. I mean, 14 with Hudson, 15 with Grayson Lambert, 16 with Jacob, 17 with Jake Fromm. You would have liked to see 19 be a lot better with Fromm, but he regressed. But again, he was going through offensive coordinator. So whenever you have a situation like David with Mark Richt in 2001 and 2, Matthew with Mike Bobo in 6 and 7, Aaron with Mike Bobo from 10 to 11, and then Jake Fromm essentially from 17 to 18. Those are all times, I would say, where you saw passing production go up. Certainly, when you think about Kirby's time with Jake Fromm as the guy from 17 to 18, you had Chaney in place in both of those situations. You saw the uptick. is the uptick for Georgia going to be based on what it had in 2020, the whole season, or is it just going to be based on the production from JT Daniels in those final 4 games of the season? Should have been 5. The Vanderbilt game getting, of course, knocked out because of coronavirus. But when you think about it and you look at what he did, JT Daniels, at the end of this season, 2 interceptions, 10 touchdowns, averaging about 300 yards a game. That to do more than that, I mean, extrapolate that over a 14, 15 game season, you're talking about some serious yardage there. You know, I don't know if you can keep up the pace of throwing for more than, throwing for 35 touchdowns in a season. And that's a lot of touchdowns. Throwing for, I'm just going to do the math here real quick, 4,000 yards. I mean, that's not something we've seen a lot of at Georgia. So we'll just see. And him having essentially 300-yard games out of 4, and the other one just where he just handed it off the whole time, that's pretty impressive. In talking to Matt DeBerry, who is over at Dog Post with me, he said he had watched the Peach Bowl the other day, and what JT did in that game became even more impressive to him. And he was dealing with a new offensive line during that time. No James Cook. And so it was really a lot, and they had a hard time running the ball. So it really was totally on JT to get it done, and he did. That drive could be what sets the trajectory forward for this Georgia season and this version of Kirby Smart's Georgia program. You never know when a thing goes, when a particular game sets you on a path. And that can be good or bad. But I think, in the early part of Kirby's season, everyone talks about the Notre Dame game. And it was a big deal game, no question. Some people say Mississippi State. But the Kentucky game in 2016 was a huge step forward for them as a program. For Georgia, I think that they got outplayed, and basically stole the game from Cincinnati. Showed just what this program can do and be capable of without a passing game. Without a run game and just a passing game. Now, you don't have George Pickens, at least for the bulk of the season. That's going to be tough because he is easy points, easy yardage. I'm watching Missouri highlights right now. There's a lot George could do that was just easy. But you're basically, quote, replacing him with Dominique Blaylock, who could be steadier. Then again, Don Blaylock had a huge catch against Auburn to score a touchdown in 2019, 18. The years are kind of blending together. I think it was 19 when they went down there to win at Auburn. So that was a 50-yard touchdown too. So Blaylock coming back is important. Getting all the parts together are important, but James Cook is critically important to the passing game. Kenny McIntosh showed that he's important to the passing game. So you've sort of announced the starting quarterback. We don't know. I don't know who the backup is. Okay, I really don't. And then now you can move forward with a steady hand of the combination of JT Daniels, the same offensive coordinator, and a defense that should be pretty good for Georgia. We'll just see what happens. Make sure you go over to the website, dogpost.com. You're missing out on a lot of details you simply cannot get anywhere else. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.